Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the sixth episode of RAW Sports Quaran-Stream. I am your host, Joshua Sim, or Josh Sim, and with me, we've got Luke Edwards here. Luke, how are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm very good, thank you, Josh. Very excited for what should hopefully be a really good match of football.
Yes, and a bit of a disclaimer, we've kind of tried to make an update on our Twitter and Instagram. We haven't quite got it out on Facebook, but we have pivoted away from the traditional Super Saturday format today. Just changing it up, really. We're doing a live commentary of Wolfsburg versus BVB Dortmund. So it'll be Luke and I doing it as a commentary duo, and we will provide updates on the other three games, including that big Leverkusen, Gladbach Leverkusen game, as well. But it's an exciting game. It's sixth place against second. Luke, so what are you expecting from the encounter we're going to have today?
Well, what I'm expecting is for Dortmund to have a much more difficult time than they did last week. Wolfsburg won their game last week. I believe they managed to beat Augsburg 2-1 with the last-minute goal from Daniel Gingsack, who actually starts today. I believe he'll be playing on the left wing. But I think Dortmund are going to have a much tougher time of it this week. Wolfsburg are a very good side. The lineup they put out today looks incredibly strong, particularly with likes of Weghorst up front. I think he's going to be able to be the real danger man up against Matt Hummels. He's going to have a really big task on his hands today. That being said, I do think the Dortmund are the superior team. They've got a very strong lineup out there. Missing Emre Can and Axel Witsel, kind of the first choice midfield pairing, but I think Delaney and Dahoud as a midfield duo is perfectly serviceable in a game of this magnitude. And I think all eyes really will just be on Erling Braut Haaland up front. He is the star man in this team, particularly with the lack of Jadon Sancho, who is again on the bench. We believe it's due to some sort of niggling injury that he's got going on. But I would 100% expect Lucien Favre's side to go and take the victory today and put pressure on Bayern Munich to go and get a win against Eintracht Frankfurt.
Yes, and obviously this is the final game Dortmund have before their big game against Bayern Munich on Tuesday night, which would be an absolute fantastic game to watch. With both teams kind of standing around, I guess, observing a minute of, I don't know, a moment of silence. I'm not really quite sure what it is. Do you want to run us through the lineups, beginning with? We begin with Wolfsburg, I guess.
Yeah, we'll start with the home side. So Wolfsburg, it looks like they're going to be in a 4-2-3-1 formation with ever-present goalkeeper Cohen Casteels in goal. The back four of Kevin Mbabu on the right, Jerome Roussillon on the left, and a centre-back pairing of Marine Pongracic and John Brooks. It looks like it's going to be a midfield duo of Javier Schlager and Max Arnold, with three players in front of them being Renato Steffen on the right, Daniel Ginczek on the left, and Admir Mehmedi in a kind of second striker role. And then it's danger man Wout Weghorst who will be leading the line for Wolfsburg. On the side of Dortmund, in goal, Roman Bürki. Back three of Lukas Piszczek, Mats Hummels and Manuel Akanji, with a midfield four of Hakimi on the right, Rafa Guerrero, who scored twice last week, on the left, Thomas Delaney and Mahmoud Dahoud make the centre midfield pairing. And then it's a front three of, very strong front three, dare I say, of Julian Brandt, Torgan Hazard, and that man, Erling Braut Haaland.
There we go. And a reminder, we're just putting down the scores here. So there are three other games as well as the one that we're covering today. We will try to give you updates as soon as we can. But the game's kicked off and Dortmund immediately on attack, it seems. Just having a look, and it's Erling Haaland. Oh, it's a sloppy touch from Brandt, it looks like, and Wolfsburg will get this clear. Although the pressure, Luke, I mean, you're watching this real time as much as I am. The pressure Dortmund have the intensity of their press in this first minute or so it's intense. It's impressive.
Yeah, so I mean, I saw a stat last week. I think it was from the Dortmund Schalke game, where it was, or it might be one of the other games. But the point is that Bundesliga is a very high pressing league. We saw that last week there had been a combined 5 kilometers more from two teams in one game in the Bundesliga. than any other game in the Premier League this season. These teams are built to press, and it wouldn't be surprising to see Dortmund, with the legacy that Jurgen Klopp's left on them, kind of carried on by Thomas Tuchel and now by Lucien Favre, of pressing high up the pitch. Because let's face it, Dortmund probably don't have the resources defensively to be able to cope with an onslaught of attack. So they are reliant on making sure they can get the ball back quickly and defending as a unit rather than as individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just watching Dortmund again control possession of the ball. And Wolfsburg have arguably, I mean, obviously it's difficult to say. Obviously, form's not really a thing now that the league's been stopped and started again, but and had a 7-week break. But Wolfsburg are arguably one of the teams in form at the moment in the Bundesliga and are really making a late push for the European spots.
Yeah, definitely. They're sat in 6th at the minute. They're in a pretty good spot because they're not. Well, they're never going to challenge for top 5. They're 11 points off. That potential is gone. They're not going to go for Champions League football this year. But they are still 2 points clear of Schalke, and I think it's Freiburg as well, who are just sat behind them. They'll be desperate to get some Europa League football because Wolfsburg are a side who I would say belong in the Europa League. They are a big side in Germany. So they'll be absolutely desperate to just secure that position for next year. And I think they've got all the potential to do it. They've got some really good players in that side. I think that, they have all the resources to go and grab that 6th spot. It's just a matter of can they execute it in these, what will be incredibly difficult games. Dortmund are formidable opposition. They will be desperate to at least try and get a draw and just keep that little bit of distance between them and Schalke. Because, as I said, they'll be desperate to go and reach that final spot.
Yeah, and we already have a goal in one of our games, actually. Not the one we're covering, but there's a goal in Paderborn versus Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim have taken the lead. Skov with the goal in the 4th minute. And that's a big... I mean, you covered Hoffenheim last weekend against Hertha. They weren't that good. They didn't look that too impressive. Obviously, we can talk about Hertha's win last night as well later on.
Yeah, definitely.
But Hoffenheim needed to produce and bounce back from their disappointing result, and an opening goal in the first 4 minutes. Obviously, we haven't seen it, but it sounds like a great start for them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Hoffenheim last week was an interesting one because they I feel they had a pretty good first half considering the injury problems they've had. They don't really have a striker at the minute. They ended up with a 17-year-old up front after Ilas Bebu went off. But one of those players who scored the goal, Robert Skov, didn't really get into the game last week. He seemed to be marked out of the game completely by the left back on behalf of Hertha. So the fact that he's managed to get himself on the score sheet will be massive for Hoffenheim. They will need him in good form if they're going to try and even pressure Wolfsburg. I don't think they're going to manage to take the spot off them, but they will want to see a bit of a resurgence in the second half of the season. So they'll be relying on making sure that they get as many decent results as they possibly can. This one against what is, let's face it, a very weak Paderborn side, they should be looking to get all 3 points. And the form of the likes of Skov in the absence of some of the other strikers that they have, no Andre Kramaric. I don't know if Bebu started today. I don't know how bad the injury was. But not having those players in their team is going to be crucial. So players are going to need to step up if they're going to start challenging for European spots.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're just watching. It's a close encounter. Back to the game that we're covering. It's a close encounter so far. Neither side's really. I mean, both sides are. The intensity is definitely there. From both sides, really pressing them. And I mean, you mentioned the midfield duo of Mahmoud and Delaney as we kind of watch Dortmund kind of take control of possession. But Wolfsburg themselves have a very decent midfield pairing as well with Max Arnold and Xaver Schlanger as well. Do you anticipate that? And do you anticipate that this game's going to be at least part of it's going to have to be won in the midfield battle?
I mean, I think those two midfielders kind of cancel each other out in a way. I don't think Max Arnold's a particularly special player. I think he's a very serviceable Bundesliga midfielder. And I think the same actually with Thomas Delaney and Mahmoud Dahoud. I would say Emre Can and Axel Witsel are the real star central midfielders for Dortmund. That being said, I think the real battles will be in the wide areas in this game. It's a matter of, can Dortmund get the likes of Hakimi and Guerrero on the ball as much as possible, playing those balls across the goal to Haaland for him to try and get some poked finishes in, get some poachers finishing on the way. I think that's where the key battles are, particularly, the form that Wolfsburg have in their wide players. Daniel Gingzak coming off a very strong week last week. Renato Steffen always dangerous. Even Kevin Mbabu, who's had a pretty good season. I think I think he's a former Newcastle player. That's where the battles lie, and I'll be interested to see where Haaland ends up. Will he start drifting out wide and rotating in that front three with Hazard and Brandt, or will they kind of stick to their positional discipline and try and maybe even go for overloads in wide areas? We know Hazard and Brandt like to get wide as much as possible and kind of cut onto their stronger feet. So I'm excited to see exactly what Dortmund are going to be doing in their game plan to try and break down the Wolfsburg side and try and get through their midfield.
Yeah, and we just saw a cross from Wolfsburg there, headed into the palms of Roman Bürki by Mats Hummels. Both sides clearly feeling themselves at the moment. No huge chances to note of as of yet, but certainly Dortmund have options on the bench. Sure, if their kind of starting 11 don't get the job done, you've got Jadon Sanchez obviously on the bench. Emre Can and Gio Reyna have recovered they've overcome their injuries to make the bench, so that's a good sign for them. Obviously, there was talk that Marco Reus might be out for the season, which would be a bit of a blow. But Dortmund. I mean, you and I agree that Dortmund have enough quality in reserve, shall we say, to kind of maintain as much of a push as they can. As we see both sides. I mean, this is it. I mean, yeah, both sides kind of feeling themselves for this first kind of 8 minutes or so. Although we say that, here comes. Oh, there was an opening there. I believe it was Thorgan Hazard, but Wolfsburg giving the ball away now. Hakimi pushing up the field, but it's been cut out. But again, Wolfsburg can't get it clear, and Dortmund control the ball. So it seems to me that Dortmund are looking to capitalize on that little burst, a little mistake, a little misplaced pass from Wolfsburg, and the likes of Hakimi are straight on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's where there's no traditional playmaker in this Dortmund side. I think that's where they really get their chances. Jurgen Klopp talks about all the time at Liverpool, where there's no better creator really than winning the ball back as soon as you possibly can. If you can pick up the ball in the Wolfsburg final third, or even in the middle third, and just break on them with speed, because let's face it, there is a lot of pace in that Dortmund lineup, particularly in Hakimi on the right. Then Wolfsburg are going to have all kinds of troubles. And that's really where Dortmund are going to have the outlets in this game. Trying to play through the wide areas, play through Hakimi, and try and win the ball back as soon as they lose it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have another goal in another game, and it pains me to say this because I got rid of him in my fantasy team. It's Kai Havertz, who's put Leverkusen 1-0 up at Gladbach. And that is a big goal in terms of and we'll put the top 5. These were the standings just before this weekend's action. And if Leverkusen can beat Gladbach, they jump both themselves and Leipzig into third place, or as high as third place, with Leipzig playing tomorrow. That could be a huge win for Leverkusen. And Kai Havertz has really come back from this break on fire.
Yeah, I mean, he was an interesting one because he had a relatively quiet start to the season, certainly by his standards, the very high standards that he set towards the end of last season. But we're seeing now that he's really recovered from that, which I think is the hallmark of what you call a future top player. We see a lot of young players, they have these sparks at the start of their careers, and they don't really manage to get themselves back into them when they eventually dwindle. But it seems like with Havertz that he's got the mentality and all the quality to get himself back to the level that he once was at. And he's in incredible form at the minute. I think he now has goal contributions in his last 6 games, which for a football like that is mental. And I think the real question with Kai Havertz is he's probably not going to be at Bayer Leverkusen come the end of the season. Where's he going to be at next year? Bayern Munich have been touted, Liverpool have been touted. I'm going to be interested to see where he ends up. Because he's a top talent.
he's one of those players that can fit in most club systems, I think. So there'll be certainly no shortage of suitors for the 20-year-old. As I mentioned, obviously, if you're part of RAW Ball, we are doing a Bundesliga fantasy league. Links to that should be in at least certainly the Ball Sport and RAW Sport groups on Facebook. And we have posted about them in the past. Getting rid of Kai Havertz was not a great. Now does not look like a great move for myself. But yeah, get involved, guys. It's a lot of fun. I think Luke, I checked this morning. I think you're in 4th spot of the 10 teams, so pretty
Champions
decent
League.
competition.
Actually, no,
Yeah,
it's not quite Champions League. That's more Europa League if we go on fractions. But still, no, I'm happy with that.
yeah.
I think
I
it's.
think
I mean, I pretty much went. Right, I'm going to put Robert Lewandowski in my team, and I'll go from there.
yeah.
It seems to have paid off a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's one of the surefire players you have in your team for sure. And the funny thing is, I have no idea who's in the league apart from obviously yourself. I know our chief engineer Jack South's in it, and myself, and obviously Luke James. But the rest of the teams, I'm none the wiser as to who is in the league. So it creates an element of mystery, which is certainly yeah, it's intriguing for sure. As I check, and Paderborn have equalised. We have an equaliser for Paderborn, so I'm just going to update the goal graphic. We have an equaliser for Paderborn, and it is Dennis Shreveni. I think I pronounced that right, Shreveni.
Okay, yeah.
Who's equalised for Paderborn. So Hoffenheim's lead did not last very long, and obviously we talked about it. Paderborn are pretty much consigned to drop. I think maybe mathematically there's still a chance, but they're more or less consigned to it. But they can definitely still become the party poopers and upsetting a team's campaign. And there we go. Hoffenheim, who, I mean, let's face it, were probably favourites on paper, have now got a bit of a job to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's not particularly surprising. Paderborn do seem to just have this habit of scoring random goals in games that they really had no right to score goals in. Like when they, for example, when they managed to go 3-0 up against Dortmund earlier in the season. They've got they just got this weird ability where you never know quite what's going to happen with them, and I think that makes them quite entertaining to watch, particularly against a very, dare I say it, predictable side like Hoffenheim. So not too surprised they got one of that. They've managed to equalise. I would expect that Hoffenheim go on and win this game. That being said, they don't have many goal scorers in their side with so many strikers out injured. So every chance that Paderborn could go and claim another victory. Is it going to mean anything in the long term? Probably not. Paderborn will go down, but it's nice to see that they're still fighting and trying to win games as much as they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean, going back to Wolfsburg Dortmund, I don't think there's not been huge chances of yet, Luke. Oh boy, not been many chances so far, but both sides still. It's felt like a bit of a possession game, and both sides are trying to find a mistake in the other teams, the defensive mistake to capitalize on it on the counter. And we know Dortmund essentially great on the counter, and it appears that Wolfsburgers are trying to do the same. It's an interesting tactical battle.
Yeah, I think Wolfsburg know that Dortmund are the ones who have pressure to go and win this game. Wolfsburg, if they lose or drop points in this game, doesn't matter. They can go and they can afford to go and kind of sacrifice this game and go on to the next season. They know that the onus is on Dortmund to go and make things happen in this match. So they're perfectly happy to sort of sit in. Possession stats just come up 71% in Dortmund's favour. Really not surprising there. Wolfsburg just seem happy to sit behind the ball, soak up pressure, and force Dortmund into doing something. Because what you'll see later on is, as the game progresses, is Dortmund know they need a win. They have to go and get a win to keep pressure on Bayern ahead of Tuesday. Because if they get a win today and then they go and beat Bayern on Tuesday, then they know that there will be just 1 point behind Bayern, provided Bayern beat Eintracht Frankfurt, which is probably a given at this point. But what Wolfsburg will know is that if they can get into sort of 60, 70 minute, so the 70th minute mark, Dortmund are going to start throwing players forward, and at that point, Wolfsburg really will be able to go and capitalise, because that Dortmund defence isn't the strongest. It's not the fastest. Hummels, Akanji, not the quickest players in the world. They know that they are players that they can get at, and that's what they'll be playing for. This game, I expect, will be cagey until either Dortmund score or it gets to around the 60th, 70th minute.
Yeah, and certainly the absence of Dan Axel Zagadou definitely takes away some pace in that back line for Dortmund. Yeah, so both teams. I mean, Hakimi's looked very good on the right so far, for sure, and definitely finding space, and certainly I'm trying to. The Wolfsburg left back is who?
Roussillon.
This is really Roussillon. That's it. He's definitely got a job in his hands at the moment.
He's probably one of the best attacking right backs in world football at the minute, Hakimi. I mean, I say a right back. He's not really a right back. I don't think he defends particularly well, but in terms of his attacking threat, he's so fast. Yeah, Roussillon's really got his handful today.
Yeah, and actually we have another goal in Freiburg Bremen. So we have got the only game so far with no goals as of yet, which is typical. Which is very much commentator radio station's choice curse. But Werder Bremen have scored, which will no doubt damper the hopes of Freiburg fans who were aiming to definitely make a late push up the table. It's Leandro Bittencourt has scored for the Groesvernen, I believe they are, the Green Whites. So both, I guess, the bottom teams are getting points here so far. At least if the games stay as they are, the two bottom teams will at least still get some points, and hopefully try and launch an unlikely kind of fight to avoid relegation, although it is very stringent on unlikely. I'm going back into. I just had to reload the stream, but I mean, Torgan Hazard's there. He's gone close. Just curled it over the bar. It was a good burst again from Hakimi, but again, this and trickery of Hazard to create the space in the goal, but he just couldn't keep it down, it seemed. And and the game, I mean, it's still both sides still kind of feeling themselves out here. Hakimi now, again, just looking to get up the pitch as much as possible. But Luke, it looks like Wolfsburg, credit to them, they've kept their shape pretty much intact throughout this game, and they don't seem to be. I mean, from the odd bursts of Hakimi on the right, but certainly in the middle of the pitch, they seem to be quite resolute, and definitely looking at just keeping a very concrete defensive structure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Wolfsburg, they're just kind of playing this game around making sure that they keep compact defensively, because they know that Dortmund, let's face it, going forward, one of the best teams in the league, second most goals in the division, one of the highest goal tallies in Europe so far this year. Up against the likes of Hakimi, even Brandt, who's going to be looking to get in behind, and Haaland, who you just don't know where he could be in the box, what point he could possibly pounce, because let's face it, you give him a half chance, he's going to go and convert it. Wolfsburg are in trouble this game. They know that they have to sit back. If they even venture out even slightly, Dortmund will manage to take the ball off them and punish them. So I think their game plan so far is working, and let's just see how long it can actually hold out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Wolfsburg have not really, save for a few crosses into the box, they've not really created any chances as of yet. It's been pretty much mostly Dortmund. Although, to be fair, I mean, Thorgan Hazard's chance there has probably been the best opening we've had to coming to a first goal of the game. And yes, Dortmund definitely controlling the ball as of now. And I mean, you think about the signing of Mats Hummels, Luke. He's really brought experience into the defense. Were you surprised that, first of all, that Bayern let him go back to Dortmund? And what do you think? Do you think he's had? I mean, what impact do you reckon he's had on their defense? And oh boy.
So Hummels is an interesting one because I think by right to let him go. I don't think they needed him. Looking at the players they got, the likes of Pavard, Lucas Hernandez, they brought in for a lot of money very recently. With people like Nicolas Sula. Bayern have a lot of good centre backs, and I just think Hummels, the case really was they could afford to let him go, even though, yeah, sure, right now he might be better than what they have. There's a real sense that in the near future that wasn't necessarily going to be the case. And they've got a lot of options in that centre back position. Hummels was slowly always going to be phased out at some point, so it makes sense for him to be at Dortmund, where he has that rapport with the fans. Maybe slightly damaged by the fact that he left them for their major rivals, but the rapport is still there. He's still one of those players that Dortmund fans value, and they see the value of them, willing to get behind him. And he's a top class centre half on his day. I think it was one of those everyone wins situations where Bayern had a centre back who was kind of expendable. Hummels wasn't going to get as much game time. Now he can go to Dortmund and not just be playing for a side that's competing for the title, but also be one of the key players in that side, and really solidify his reputation as one of the best all-time Bundesliga centre backs.
Yeah, and he's looked good so far. I mean, he's been a calming presence at the back, and you can see what they're trying to do. Dortmund, they're trying to build attacking plays from the back through the corridor, and then using the pace of Hakimi as well along the width on the flanks as well. So I think it's coming up to about 20 minutes or so gone in this game, and I mean, both sides. Other than Thorgan Hazard's big chance, not a huge amount of chances created so far. But certainly Dortmund. If you're picking a team, Luke, it looks like Dortmund are most likely to score.
Yeah, I would say so. Let's face it, Wolfsburg haven't really ventured beyond their own half. Because they haven't needed to. This isn't the game that they're going to be trying to play. They are just going to be looking to sit back and hold on for as long as possible. But what that does leave them open to is a Dortmund to just maybe get a lucky pot shot, just find that extra bit of space. It only takes one Wolfsburg player to switch off, and Haaland or Brandt are in, and at that point it's kind of game over. So they've got to be really careful, got to keep very disciplined, and I think that will form most of their game plan for the rest of this game. And just hoping that maybe Dortmund make a mistake on the counter-attack and then go and punish them as easily as they possibly can.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is exactly what they're looking for, isn't it? For Wolfsburg, a mistake, an error from this Dortmund defense, who at times have been susceptible, as you mentioned with the paddleboard game, they've been susceptible at times to making defensive errors and being costly errors as well. So we'll keep an eye on that. Although Wolfsburg seem to be certainly their fullbacks, and we talked about Mbabu as a it's gone wide there. Wout Weghorst, his addition has brought something to the team. But I was going to say, Luke, about Mbabu and Wolfsburg's left back. His name Roussillon. That's it. My bad. That's twice now. Certainly, Wolfsburg and Oliver Glasner, their head coach, he's really looking to push them up just as high, it seems, which at times, that might be costly against the likes of Hakimi or Ralph Guerrero. But so far they seem to be getting away with it.
Yeah, and I think it's because they're not really making any stupid passing errors. Arnold in that midfield, he's just played light football, just vertical pass straight through to I believe it was Mehmedi, but or it might have been Stefan actually. But the point being that they're not giving away the ball stupidly, because they know Dortmund, if they manage to get the ball back and they have even an inkling of space, will just pounce on it. So they're not in the best. They're in a decent spot so far. Let's just hope that it can continue.
Yeah, and as you said, Wolfsburg slowly trying to get themselves into this game, try and create an opening, but it remains still pretty much all Dortmund. Although you wonder maybe someone in the second half, maybe someone like a Jadon Sancho, or even a Mario Götze, someone with that skill set of being able to kind of create an opening out of nothing. Maybe that'll be something. Maybe that'll be an option Dortmund look at, and Lucien Favre. And speaking of Mario Götze, it came out I think this morning. Sporting director Michael Zorc of Dortmund, he kind of announced to everyone, and I don't think it's a huge surprise, but he kind of said that Mario Götze will be leaving the club at the end of the season. Um, I mean, I know when RAW Sport, when we kind of posted about it, we kind of used that GIF of his World Cup final winning goal in 2014. But since then, Luke, Goetze's not really had. Obviously, he moved back to Dortmund, but it's not quite worked out as he'd hoped, and it just feels like this decision to part ways kind of makes sense for both club and player.
Yeah, it really does. Ever since that, it was that illness that he got around 2016 time.
Yeah,
And at that point, it just seemed like his career, to be honest, was pretty much. I mean, I think he took he was off for a lot of time. It just doesn't seem to he's been able to progress as much as he would have wanted to. So I think there's still a decent player in there. I just don't think he's actually at the level that Borussia Dortmund require at the moment. It's going to be a matter of, can he find a club? I mean, even though I even imagine a club like Wolfsburg would be happy to take him on. There will be clubs that will be willing to take a risk on him, because if he gets back to that level he was at when he was sort of 2013, 2014 time, then whoever picks him up is going to have a hell of a player. But yeah, he's just unfortunately, because of that illness, he doesn't seem to have gotten to the level that we expected him to be at, and he seems to actually have regressed, which is completely out of his control, and it's actually quite sad. But no, I think it'd be the right move for all parties.
yeah, and you mentioned it there, but do you envisage a move to, say, a Wolfsburg or another a Bundesliga team, where he can kind of thrive and become that creative force that maybe those opportunities are no longer there available for him at Dortmund? So, yeah, are you saying would you suggest kind of one of those teams to be the best destination for him?
Yeah, I think certainly Wolfsburg will probably be one of those sides that will be willing to take a gamble and take him on, because he is a Europa League level player. The other option is he goes and tries to find somewhere else. He could go to England. He could probably even go to China and try and earn some money, because let's face it, he's a big name. He's a big name in football.
Yeah.
World Cup winner, World Cup finalist, World Cup goal scorer, most famously. So if he, he's a marketable player, he would be a good landmark signing. Even, let's say, the Newcastle takeover goes through, he would be a good signing just on a PR level of having this World Cup winner in their side. It would be hilarious to see Mario Götze running around in a black and white Newcastle shirt, but crazy things have happened. He could go to the Premier League. I don't really see him going to La Liga. I don't see him. Maybe he could end up in Italy if the right team decided to go and pick him up. Who knows? But the point is, I don't think there'll be a lack of clubs who'd be willing to take a punt on him, because there is every potential that he goes back and becomes the player that we all thought he would be one day. It's just unfortunately been curtailed by a few years of bad luck.
Yeah, and I'll just chuck in. I can see him definitely in the MLS as well. For whichever team is willing to pay his wages, I can definitely see him in the US or Canada as well. And yeah, it'd be interesting to see if he comes to the Premier League. To me, it feels like, and I know he wasn't the same age at the time, but it'd feel like Van der Vaart joining Spurs, that kind of foreign import in that creative midfield, and really could turn things around and really become a creative force in that midfield. Or I mean, even Lucas Podolski was a good-ish player for Arsenal at the time. He didn't obviously have the greatest impact on them, but he still was able to contribute in some way for them as well.
Yeah, I mean, Podolski's a bit of a special case, because I don't think he was particularly great. I don't think his club career was as good as his international career. I always thought when he actually played in that German side, I think he was a better player. But yeah, I mean, there's no reason why a Premier League team like Arsenal couldn't go and pick up someone like Mario Götze. I think he's He's got all the quality to go and play for whoever he wants to play. He might have to accept being on the bench a few times, like he has been at Dortmund this year. He's going to have to accept probably a pay cut. I don't think he justifies, or maybe not necessarily a pay cut, but certainly a reduced deal. I can't see him going and grabbing a 5-year deal on 120 grand a week. I don't see that happening. I don't see anyone wanting to pay that for Mario Götze. But there'll be no shortage of clubs that will be wanting to come in for him. Arsenal could well be one of them.
Yep, absolutely. And we'll just have to wait and see what Mario Götze does in the near future, at least. And I think there's a goal. We have a goal, and it comes from Raf Guerrero. So let's put that in. And it's a great fit, and it looks like a terrifically well worked goal for Dortmund. I'm just waiting on a replay, but again, it burst down the right. One cross that Wolfsburg failed to kind of get rid of, and it does seem again, I'm looking at it now, Hakimi just lays it off to Torgan Hazard, and while Haaland completely miskicks it completely, Raf Guerrero's there to tap home, and he is on form. And Luke Edwards, I don't know if you've seen the goal yet or not, but Raf Guerrero, he's got 3 goals in 2 games since the league's come back.
Not bad for a left back, eh? I mean, it was a very well worked goal. What did we say? We knew it would come from something down that Dortmund right hand side, and lo and behold, Achraf Hakimi gets a bit of space and absolutely tears apart the Wolfsburg defence. It was really nifty through ball played through. I believe it must have been to Torgan Hazard. Plays the ball across the goal. Haaland completely misses his kick, which you very rarely see. Normally he's very clinical, but fortunately for him, Guerrero's just there to go and tap it home. And I think what this does is it puts Dortmund in a very good spot, because what it's going to do is it's going to cause Wolfsburg to step out a little bit more. Dortmund are happy to sit back now, but we know that Dortmund on the counter-attack, with the pace that they've got in their side, Wolfsburg are going to be in a lot of trouble going to the rest of the game. This could get very interesting.
For sure, it's going to force Wolfsburg to play, and indeed, they're kind of, you can see there's a little bit of an intensity in their play, and in their certainly in trying to create an offensive play for them now. But yeah, this definitely will maybe force a tactical alteration or two for Wolfsburg. Maybe, I know they have the fullbacks certainly very high, but maybe they push the midfield higher as they win it back, and it's just, I think Haaland there fouls Roussillon, so it's going to be a free kick to Wolfsburg. But it's going to be interesting to see what they do now, Wolfsburg, in terms of, do they now flood more bodies forward in attack, or do they kind of just keep playing it as they are and just hope for another mistake from Dortmund?
No, I think they have to make sure that they try and at least do something, because their game plan hasn't worked, so they need to switch it up. Ideal situation would be that sorry, I just nearly sneezed. The ideal situation would be that they can try and get themselves through to halftime. That Haaland miss kick is absolutely hilarious. The ideal situation would mean that they get through around halftime, and they can just reset. They figure out something, a new way of approaching the game.Maybe they change formation, go a bit more aggressive. They could even consider putting maybe Gingsek up front and shifting Mehmedi over onto the left and going more for like a 4-4-2. 4-4-2 kind of system, and try and pressure Dortmund that way. But it's not looking good for them. They will not be happy they've conceded in the first half, because let's face it, their game plan was very obviously to get to around the 60th or 70th minute before they tried to win the game and just try and pressure Dortmund. Dortmund, Now for them, the pressure will be completely relieved. They're happy. They're 1-0 up. They don't have to go and score another goal. They can sort of take their foot off the pedal a little bit. But in all honesty, Dortmund should just keep up the pressure and keep on doing what they're doing. They're creating a lot of space, particularly on the right-hand side. I think that's something that Wolfsburg's game plan hasn't really addressed as well as it should have done. And if they keep on exploiting that, there's no reason why they can't go and grab a second goal before half-time and kill the game off.
Yeah, and we're just seeing yeah, and we just talked now as Wolfsburg's left back Roussillon he's just limping off the field for a bit of treatment.
It was just a clattering from Haaland. Haaland went to kick the ball. Roussillon put his foot in the way. It's a free kick to Wolfsburg, but it's nothing more than that.
Yeah, and you saw replays of the goal again, and you see Julian Brandt's kind of pass to kind of take out two opponents just on the touchline to get to Hakimi. Yeah. I mean, he's looked very good in the kind of more advanced role he's been given, and we know, and I know, you know, he was a winger at one stage and an attacking player. Then Favre kind of moved him back and tried to play him in more of a deeper role, which he's obviously very good at, but it seems that this kind of back to playing in this high up advanced role seems to allow him to flourish a bit more creatively again.
Yeah, I think that's probably where Brandt kind of has his best moments, when he's in high positions and he can make things happen, because that's what Julian Brandt's all about. He's not about being that industrious central midfielder, ball winning midfielder. He can do that, don't get me wrong, but that's not what his game is really. It's not where you're utilising it properly. It's a bit like I was just trying to think of an analogy and it's completely gone from my head, but you're not using him to his full potential when he's in central midfielder. If you give him a bit more of a free role, get him further up the pitch, because I think Torgan Hazard's perfectly happy playing more of the utility role in that front three. He can go and just make things happen. We're seeing him; he's popping up everywhere. He popped up on the right. We've seen him kind of rotate into left channels as well. He's just sort of having a game where he's happy to pick himself up in whatever pockets of space he can find, pick up the ball, and you see it now. He's just making a mixture between coming deep and then playing the ball, trying to make runs in behind. He's playing very unpredictably, which for a Wolfsburg defense, which is built on organisation, is very disruptive. And it's no surprise that he played such a key role in the first goal.
Yeah, and he again just continues his good form that he showed in the Riviera derby last weekend. And you don't want to look past this game, but obviously the Bayern Munich clash looms heavily, and I'm sure it's on it'll be on the minds of certainly Dortmund fans and maybe some of the players too. And Lucien Favre's got a big decision to make. Obviously, it's early, we're still in the first half, but looking ahead, and with Jadon Sancho on the bench, and every kind of game missed gives him a bit more of opportunity to recover a bit more and get himself back to full fitness. And you've got Gio Reyna as well, who clearly Favre trusts to start the Riviera derby. Unfortunately for him, he picked up that injury, but certainly there's a lot of options for Favre heading into that big game against Die Roten.
Definitely. He needs to. He's got crucial decisions, as you say. Like, do you end up just going, you know what, we'll stick with the team that we got, or do you twist and you go for putting Jadon Sancho in? He might come in and he might be completely rusty and not really contribute. Equally, you could put Jadon Sancho in and he'd win the game. Like, it's a decision that I certainly wouldn't want to make. I anticipate the Favre will probably stick with what he's got. I don't think he needs to throw in Sancho, particularly given the players who've replaced him in Brandt and Hazard seem to be having very good games. So there's no real pressure to bring him in that situation. So yeah, for now, it's a decision to make. I don't anticipate him starting Sancho where he hasn't really had the game time, and risk bringing in a player who's going to be rusty and potentially disrupt the whole system. When you know that you've got players in your team already who can perform to a level that is more than acceptable in a game against Bayern Munich.
Yeah, and I mean that is a very intriguing game. And I mean we didn't really, obviously because the game was on Sunday, we've not really talked about it, but Bayern's win against Union Berlin was obviously very comfortable and they looked very much in control, and this will obviously be a massive step up for them. I mean, Frankfurt will obviously be a bit of a step up for them, because Frankfurt was the game that cost Niko Kovac his job, really, losing 5-1 to them. So
yeah, they have a bit of history against Frankfurt. Obviously, Frankfurt under Niko Kovac took the DFB Pokal away from them in 2018. This is a game that Bayern Munich fans and the players they'll go into it with a little bit of uncertainty, and I think that's something that Dortmund, particularly now they're one up against Wolfsburg. I think Bayern players and fans will be watching this just thinking a little bit more cautiously about the game tomorrow. If Bayern end up dropping points, it puts Dortmund in an incredibly strong position on Tuesday, and just sets that up even more tantalisingly than it currently is. So I'm very excited to see what's going to happen in the Bundesliga over the next few days, Josh. I'm just hoping, for drama's sake, that we get Dortmund win and Bayern go and drop points tomorrow, and just put even more emphasis on the importance of Tuesday's game between the two sides.
Yeah, and you factor in, of the players that kind of impressed last weekend. Obviously, Rafa Guerreiro again is looking very good, very much in form as per usual. Hakimi's looked very well, but on the Bayern side, Alphonso Davies has taken his chance at left back and really made that position his own, even though he's a winger. So there's a lot of certainly a lot of exciting wing backs, fullbacks, wingers. Talent for both sides, and that will certainly be a very interesting positional battle. And definitely a game that we're gonna definitely look forward to. And if you keep on following RAW Sports Twitter's account, certainly we will keep providing updates on that game. But as the kind of first half sort of comes slowly to its end, it looks like Wolfsburg have kind of transitioned to a bit more trying to get the ball to Weghorst and Mehmedi or Ginczek, kind of long ball style, and it looks like, as we said, because Hummels he's obviously physically he's a very tough defender to beat, and it looks like there's been little success for Wolfsburg with this new kind of strategy.
Yeah, it's not really working out for them at the minute, unfortunately. We're seeing this as Dortmund go through, and Hazard just drags his shot wide. Really should have done better in that situation. The ball set up very nicely for him. But Wolfsburg, this is the issue they've got. Again, Hakimi finding some space on that right-hand side, delivering the ball into a very dangerous position, right on the edge of the penalty area, but in a nice enough way that Hazard's got the space to really actually just maybe even take a touch and try and hit it. He goes for it first time, it doesn't come off for him whatsoever. But this is exactly what Dortmund would have wanted. They would have wanted Wolfsburg to pop out a little bit more. They seem to sit defensively in more of a 4-4-2 shape. Ginczek and Weghorst kind of attacking or trying to pressure the centre backs as a duo, but it's really not coming off for them at the minute. They might have to look for a structural reshuffle, maybe bring on a couple of different players. Can't think of who, but they could look into bringing on someone else, maybe to give them a little bit more dynamism going forward. It just seems to be a little bit static moving from them at the minute. So Dortmund very comfortable. Just be hoping to get through to half time with a 1-0 lead, or maybe even increase it and get one before the half finishes. And
for sure. And you look at the options on Wolfsburg's bench. The only one really that stands out to me in terms of attacking options is Josip Brekalo. But again, he's a winger. So in terms of the middle of the pitch, he's not really going to change too much unless Coach Oliver Glasner decides to put him in terms of like playing in between Dahoud and Delaney and really try and shake things up.
The only thing I could see is maybe just try and test Hakimi a little bit more, because Hakimi's pushing up a lot, and I think what Dortmund get right with Hakimi, because I don't think he's a very good defender. I really don't. In fact, I think he's a bad defender by Bundesliga standards. What they get right is that Hakimi on the ball is fantastic. He's so quick. He's got a really good cross on him. And by playing Lukasz Piszczek just behind him, who is naturally a right back, they kind of allow Hakimi to go and do his own thing. But I'd like to see them through bringing on Brekalo. Try and test Piszczek, try and get in that little bit of space that is going to be left behind Hakimi, and try and exploit that as much as possible. And if they manage to do that, I think they could have a little bit of joy. So I think you're right, Josh. I think Brekalo, bring him in on that left-hand side and see if he can do anything that could engineer a little bit of something, a little spark, a little opportunity for Wolfsburg in this match.
Yeah, I mean, that's that's really one of the few ways I can see. Obviously, you got Felix Klaus on the bench as well, but I think this is this is one of the strongest teams Wolfsburg could put up today, and I mean, there is a bit of a gulf of quality, and maybe that ends up being the deciding factor. As we see, Owen Hakimi again burst down the right, and he's looking for options, and he finds Hazard. Now it's Piszczek's got the ball, and they look to switch it again, switch at least, but and Delaney he sort of misplaced pass, but it falls to Brandt, and now Brandt can really get to work on Kevin Mbabu, and he's got so much space, doesn't he, Julian Brandt, and it falls, and Wolfsburg just about get it clear, and Mehmedi's going to be, and Mbabu finally kind of scraps it clear, but the amount of space that Dortmund seem to be having in that final third, Luke, is
it's worrying.
Yeah, you kind of think that you kind of have that impression that something's going to happen.
Yeah, definitely. I think what Wolfsburg are currently getting wrong is, or maybe not necessarily getting wrong, but I think maybe something that Dortmund are doing very well is they seem to be recycling possession quite well. They go in and they're winning the second balls, and Delaney, I mean, you talk about him doing a misplaced pass, but what he's doing is he's calming things down and he's allowing Dortmund to go again. And I think that's why Favre's played him today over the likes of Emre Can, is because he is one of those players who does like to just recycle possession, take a breath, and then go again. But Dortmund, I mean, it's come to half time now. Dortmund would be very happy with that first half performance. As strong as probably not the strongest one they've had all season, but certainly one of the most dominant. Wolfsburg haven't created anything, and I think Dortmund would be happy going into the break.
Yeah, and a win. I mean, obviously Dortmund go in 1-0 up thanks to that Raf Guerrero goal. That Raf Guerrero goal, for those who did not see that goal, and that obviously Bayern to play later on, but that puts them again a point behind the league leaders. And just a quick, I mean, I guess a halftime score update. But there's only 3 games really to talk about. Gladbach 1-0 down at Leverkusen. Kai Havertz with that goal. Paderborn is their bottom side. Paderborn, they are holding Hoffenheim to a 1-1 draw at the moment. Skov's opener for Hoffenheim cancelled out by Dennis Streni's equaliser not long after. And then Werder Bremen, a surprise lead at Freiburg. Leander Bittencourt scoring there, and Freiburg have got some job to do if they want to keep up the pressure for a possible European spot. No matter how unlikely maybe that sounds, but they definitely still have a chance of getting there. And obviously there was a game last night. Maybe we can talk about this now while during the halftime break. But Hertha Berlin against Union Berlin, the Berlin derby. Obviously Union Berlin, their first season in the Bundesliga, so we had the reverse fixture. They won, I believe, earlier on in the season. It promised a lot, and in the end, Bruno Labbadia has got off to a really great start at Hertha Berlin.
Yeah, absolutely massive for him. Considering the circumstances he was brought in under as well. Like, I'm not sure if it is a new manager bounce or if it genuinely is a this revolutionary manager that Hertha have managed to find. I'm hesitant to say that this Hertha team is massively improved, purely on the basis that they haven't really had. I mean, let's see. Look at their face. They faced Hoffenheim, who, yeah, they're a good side, but they had a lot of injuries. They're playing Union Berlin, who against Bayern Munich looked toothless, absolutely toothless. That being said, there's a lot of positives that Hertha Berlin can be taking from their victories. I mean, that goes without saying, but particularly you have to look at the likes of Mateusz Cunha, who has, I believe, 6 goal contributions now for the side, and he only joined in January. He's been a very good signing for them, and I saw him last week against Hoffenheim. He's massively dangerous when he gets the ball at his feet. He's one of those players who's always looking to make things happen. He's got a good pass, good vision, and he can also hit a shot. He's also keen to attack things and approach games positively. And he's also only 22, so he's a player who they could hold on to for a while, even sell on for a lot of money in the future. But I've been massively impressed with him. He performed very well yesterday, and they'll be absolutely buzzing with the result they've got. Massive shout out to veteran striker Vedad Ibišević as well, getting himself on the score sheet yet again. More goals coming from him. I think he got a goal and an assist yesterday as well, so he's really turning up. And I think Hertha, yeah, they haven't had the best season. I think the season was always going to be a bit of a write-off for them, but those 2 wins, winning, an aggregate score of 7-0, pretty massive for both them and their supporters. And I mentioned this last week. These performances now for Hertha, they're not about this season. This is about getting themselves ahead of the game for next season, getting themselves into form, figuring out a system, having those players like Cunha bedded in so they're just ready to go next year. I think that's going to be absolutely crucial for them.
Yeah, and it's great. I mean, it's always great to score 4 goals, but the fact that 3 of their, I guess they played 4-2-3-1, but 3 of their advanced 4 got onto the score sheet is obviously a very good thing. And even with Piontek on the bench, who can't seem to find his way into this Hertha Berlin side, which, and maybe it's a tactical thing. Maybe we don't see what happens in training. Maybe he's not been training as much as Ibišević, but yeah, it definitely says a lot that it definitely says something that he can't get into this team. And Hertha, obviously they're mid-table. They're not really playing for a whole lot at the moment. But certainly for next season, if they do get the same financial backing as they did in January, they can. I think you'd agree with this. You could say that they would be certainly pushing for the top half and maybe set their sights on where Wolfsburg are now, where Freiburg are now.
Yeah, I think they have to take it baby steps. They're not going to be a side. I think the top 5 that we see in the Bundesliga right now, it's told. The story's kind of told by the points discrepancy. They are by far the 5 best teams in that league. What Hertha can be looking at in the immediate future is, again, as you said, going for those Europa League spots, getting themselves into European competition so that then they can attract better players. Because, yeah, we know they have the money, but are they the project? Is it your players going to buy into a project where we've seen managers come and go willy-nilly over the past season? I think they're on like 3rd or 4th manager this season, which is just crazy. So it's a matter of actually trying to get some consistency. If they can manage the club to keep their manager, Bruno Labbadia really gets the chance to implement his project and his vision for the club, and they go and they become a little bit more successful. They're going to become a very attractive destination for players in the Bundesliga and from abroad as well. So I think that's what they have to prioritize. They have to start prioritizing making sure that they can keep the likes of Labbadia in charge, make sure that he is given a project and given time to build his squad, and also make sure that the likes of Matej Cunha, Dodi Lukebakio, young hungry players, are given the opportunities to develop themselves both on a domestic level and going into the Europa League as well. And if they can provide those opportunities, they'll naturally become a much more attractive destination for a lot of top players. And that's exactly where they should be aiming for the time being before they go and start challenging the likes of Bayer Leverkusen or Borussia Dortmund for the Champions League spots.
Yeah, and also I just remembered Javero de Rosen's also at Hertha Berlin, and he's obviously an exciting talent as well. So they've definitely got the crux of a team there for sure, who can really push and put some exciting attacking play for this season and next season as well. There was a news story, and I think, and I'm assuming you may have seen this, but the Spanish government today have announced that La Liga will be given the green light to resume from June 8th. So that's about 2-3 weeks from now. We assume that given Javier Tebas he's been quite aggressive in trying to get games back on. We assume that they will pretty much start as soon as that first weekend after the June 8th. So that'll be about the 14th, the 13th of June. Obviously it's still, the title race is still undecided between Barca and Real Madrid. But and I know you and Joe have covered La Liga extensively on Eurozone. Quick plug there. But what kind of storylines are you excited to see if and when this La Liga season gets resumed?
So we kind of, with La Liga, there's 2 main ones. It's the same ones as you see in the Premier League, where it's a matter of, you've got you've got the title battle, then you've got battle for European football, and then you've got your relegation battle, all of which are actually quite fascinating in La Liga this year. So, as you mentioned, Barcelona and Real Madrid, both of them having, by their standards, pretty bad seasons.
Yeah.
Barcelona heavily reliant on Lionel Messi, changed their manager halfway through. Real Madrid, haven't really got running in the new year in particular. I think that actually the COVID crisis hit them at what was a pretty decent time. That they just fallen flat against Man City in the Champions League. They'll be absolutely desperate for a trophy, both of them, this year, because they've had just dreadful seasons by their standards. It'll be vital for them to try and win La Liga if they're going to get the fans back on board. Looking at the top four, massive competition. You've got some newcomers, or certainly newcomers in recent years. Getafe are back fighting at that level like they were last year, which is very surprising. Yeah. They're a very good side. Sevilla under Julen Lopetegui had a very strong start to the season. Haven't really managed to maintain that. They're still around that area, but they are struggling a little bit. You've always got Valencia always in that battle, in that conversation. Atletico Madrid, by their standards, having an awful season. And then you've also got some really exciting teams, looking like Athletic Bilbao have had really good seasons. Managing to get into the Copa del Rey final, and then the team they're playing, and arguably the most entertaining team to watch in La Liga this year, Real Sociedad. They have got an absolutely fantastic team, likes of Martin Odegaard, Mikel Oyarzabal, Porto, who's one of my favourite right wingers in La Liga. I think he's a fantastic footballer. They signed him from Girona in the summer after they got relegated. They've got some really good players in that side, so you've got a fascinating battle for top four, where you've got teams of all different styles coming up against each other, and even like the pantomime villains of Getafe, who just seem to kick something out of every team that they face. It's absolutely great battles, some great narratives going on there. And then towards the bottom end of the table, it's an interesting one. So we've got Espanyol are probably the side that most people were kind of surprised by with the situation there, and they lost their manager Ruby, who left for Real Betis in the summer, and they've brought in. They've experimented with 3 different managers. I can't even remember who their current manager is, but they've not had a great season. They've managed to bring in Raul de Tomas from Benfica in January. He's come in and he's started scoring goals for them, because that was one of their biggest losses from last season, as they had a guy called Borja Iglesias who was taken to Real Betis. They didn't actually replace him properly with a proper striker. They managed to bring in Raul de Tomas. He's come in, he started scoring goals, and they've started to look that little bit better and get themselves off the foot of the table. You've also got the likes of Celta Vigo. Iago Aspas plays for them. He's managed to, in previous years, drag them out of relegation battles. Hasn't quite been managed to do the same thing this season, but he's managed to do it in recent weeks, or certainly the weeks before La Liga was suspended. He's looking very good. Celta Vigo, it's kind of 50-50. It's a matter of, can Aspas actually drag them out of that relegation battle? I'm not sure if he's going to be able to. We'll have to wait and see. You've got RCD Mallorca are in that battle as well. They've had a couple of scalps this season. They beat Real Madrid, but they haven't got the greatest team in the world. They're struggling, but they're around in that battle. You've got Leganes. They're an interesting one, because they looked like they were going to manage to kind of keep themselves afloat, or at least like have a chance of keeping themselves afloat. And then they were forced into selling Martin Braithwaite to Barcelona after they triggered his release clause. Very controversial, came in after the transfer window. They were denied the opportunity to bring in a replacement. They're not in a very good position. Don't really have a reliable goal scorer with Braithwaite absent, so they're not in a great position. And then in recent weeks, we've seen Este Eibar, the Basque side, they've been dragged back into the battle as well. They were kind of 5 points clear, but they ran into a very tough, they had a very rough patch of form, and now they're right back in the mix. Probably won't get relegated. They've got some pretty good players in their side, the likes of Fabian Oriana, but they are struggling, and so you kind of got 5 teams in the mix who are going to be finding it really difficult to try and survive. It's fascinating. Any of those 5 teams could go down. Any of those 5 teams could stay up. So what we've got 3 very interesting battles going on in La Liga, and I'm excited to see them concluded, because I think they're stories that deserve to be concluded.
Yeah, and it's as you've kind of comprehensively laid down, there's certainly a lot of things to look out for in every way you look at the table, and And yeah, it should be. I mean, there's just so much. Every team seems to have something to play for, or to something to motivate them, certainly into producing over the last kind of 11 games or so. So it should be a fascinating La Liga race, and I will. Yeah, I'll say it. I mean, look, we were very fortunate to have Chris Williams on to break down the Bundesliga restart a few weeks ago. If you follow him on Twitter, he's been on every kind of major media outlet. So the fact that he had an hour or two to spare with us is amazing. We will hopefully try and get a Spanish football correspondent on as well. I'd love to get that on.
Yeah.
I'd love to. First of all, I'd have to look for someone who I think is going to be available, but I would love if I don't know. I don't think any are watching right now, but I'd love to get one on again to just kind of have a similar kind of discussion, break down the league and the major plot points as you've already outlined as well. So we've got that to look forward to, and still we haven't got official news on the Premier League, but they've obviously come back to training, so that a restart there looks likely maybe end of June, early July, you could say, and also you've got and Italy as well. Obviously, Italy are back in training as well, so it does look like after a month or two of no football, it seems like everything will slowly come back. And yeah, I mean, what would you say La Liga is the league you're most looking forward to in terms of resolving their seasons?
Yeah, I think of the big four leagues, so I don't really count. I don't like the idea of the big five because I think it's the big four and PSG. But in terms of the big four leagues, Bundesliga is probably the one that I pay the least attention to. I was very happy to see it back because I think there's some great teams, some great players. But in terms of the narratives that I've been invested in this season, they've mostly been related to the other big three. Less so Serie A. I mean, I've mostly kept an eye on Serie A because of Joe Spagnoli, who I do a podcast with. But the main one that I've been like, I've watched sort of one or two games a weekend has been La Liga, just watching all of these teams slog it out in what is a very competitive and a very attractive league to watch. And I'm desperate to see those narratives resolved because it's set up so many amazing opportunities for some clubs. I mean, I'm mostly looking forward actually to the Copa del Rey final, which is going to be between Athletic Bilbao and Real Sociedad. I think it's the first time in history it's been between the two big Basque clubs. So that's absolutely massive. So we've got that to look forward to, and I think that these are moments that I'm going to be looking forward to watching for the rest of the year, and I'm glad that it looks like slowly we're going to be able to get them.
Yeah, absolutely, and it will definitely be one of the, I guess, with the Premier League. Obviously, the top of the table seems to be decided, and obviously there's a few more plot points to resolve lower down the table, but certainly La Liga remains one of those leagues where everything remains up for grabs, and and that's a fascinating one that we're definitely going to have to keep our eyes on as the two teams kind of come out for the second half. I don't think that any substitutions have been made so far, but Luke, maybe just give an outline of what you're expecting, or what do you think will happen in this next 45 minutes or so.
I mean, I'd fully expect Borussia Dortmund to just go and take this victory. They're in a very good spot. I think if it was got to half time and it's still 0-0, you'd maybe fancy Wolfsburg to venture out, but it all changes. I think if it will depend heavily on the next goal. If Wolfsburg manage to get themselves back into the game, then that means Dortmund are going to have to come out, and if Wolfsburg can hit them on the attack and kill them off that way, then the game could go either way. But I think if Dortmund manage to get the second goal, I do think the game is killed off. Psychologically, that would be very damaging for Wolfsburg. But also on the front of having that extra 2-goal buffer for Dortmund will be massive, and just being able to sit back and sort of save a bit of energy because they're going to need it against Bayern Munich on Tuesday.
Yeah, and actually we missed it, but there has been a substitution made. Mats Hummels, who I thought was having a very good game, albeit obviously there wasn't a huge amount of attacking threat to deal with, but I did think he was having a very good game. He's come off for Emre Can, who's making his first appearance.
It seems like an injury thing, if anything, because I don't think you'd want to take off Mats Hummels in these situations. And I think this was part of the reason actually they brought Emre Can in, because he's very comfortable slotting into a back three. He's one of the most versatile players in world football. Yeah, it makes sense to bring him on. He's got a lot of experience to offer. Yeah, they'll just be hoping that he can provide the same level of leadership that Hummels has been providing, and just making sure that defense isn't interrupted, because they've managed to deal with the likes of Weghorst very well so far in this game.
Yeah, and you think about his skill set, Luke. I mean, he's obviously he's a defensive midfielder, but and he's got the passing range that Hummels will have as well. So it makes sense with given that he's not paired. He's kind of partnered up with Lucas Piszczek and Akanji, who are defenders by trade, to have that kind of to slot in as that ball playing centre half. That seems like an ideal role for him, with having Dahoud and Delaney kind of playing the industrial role in front of him. It does look like a very formidable setup, albeit a makeshift setup, but a formidable one.
Yeah, I think there is a noticeable drop off. I mean, we've just seen Chan then just literally just misposition himself, and Wolfsburg are in, and they should have scored.
I think that should.
Ginczek.
I believe it is, and
you should have
just
that
looking
away.
At the replay.
Chan gets dragged out of position.
Yeah,
and it looks to me like Chan gets dragged out of position. Akanji comes off to try and cover him, and there's a massive gap between Akanji and Guerrero, and Ginczek just sort of walks in between them. And I know it's not Ginczek, Stefan, Renato Stefan, and he just smashes the ball, clips the bar. It's a massive let off for Dortmund. I think this is exactly what I'm talking about. I don't think Chan provides the same level of solidity that you get through Hummels. I don't think they have any opportunity or any choice but to bring him on. Particularly when they've had the injury to Zagadou, but you ask questions, you do wonder.
It's definitely,
and it's not. I'm not surprised. Again, I'm actually disappointed that Chan drags himself out of position so easily. Then he's completely in no man's land for that position, which Stefan was able to get himself into. So, but what this does actually is psychologically, this adds something else for Wolfsburg. This gives them that little bit of encouragement to think, all right, Hummels is gone. We actually have a chance of getting well in behind this Dortmund side and try and exploit their weakness in defence. I said as Ginczek smashes the ball over the bar.
As you said. Yeah, I was going to say Wolfsburg have come out of this half really swinging, and definitely. I mean, if I was Oliver Glasner, I would definitely try and put pressure on Chan, because you think about it, Luke. He's only just come back from injury. I don't know how much training he'd have had at the centre back role, because obviously he's a defensive midfielder by trade. So maybe it's something to capitalize there, because obviously he's not quite fully match ready. He's not quite fully match fit, and maybe it's something that the likes of a Renato Stefan or a Ginczek or even a Mehmedi, someone quick and pacey, can just put pressure on him and see, what they can come up with, maybe, and just gamble in the hope that he makes a mistake like he just did.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what this game is kind of going to be reliant on for Wolfsburg, is just capitalizing on any slight mistakes that Dortmund make. Yeah, they're not in a very good position right now, but if they can create chances, because let's face it, Chan, he's come on, he might be able to settle into this game. They kind of need to pounce as soon as possible and cause issues like immediately. But yeah, I think that would have really shaken Dortmund a little bit, actually, because I don't think they for me were maybe getting a little bit too comfortable, particularly after the first half where nothing really happened to them defensively, and yeah, that could psychologically change the outcome of this game. But we'll have to wait and see.
And speaking of which, there's been a goal, but not in this game, in the Gladbach-Leverkusen game. Gladbach have equalized through Marcus Thuram, one of the star players. Obviously we're watching the Dortmund game, so we don't quite know how he scored, but Gladbach needed to respond. Clearly, they obviously going a goal down to Kai Havertz's opener. They needed to respond, and seemingly, obviously, we're kind of assuming here, but seemingly they've come back, and Marco Rose has given them a fiery pep talk and got them back in swinging.
Well, the attacking talent that Gladbach side has is not particularly surprising. I mean, everyone talks about that attacking trident of Brel and Bolo, Marcus Thuram, and Alassane Player. Like those three are three of the best attackers in the Bundesliga. We said it all along. And yeah, that'll be an absolutely massive goal for them. Going in at half-time 1-0 down, still with title hopes lingering, they would have been doubting themselves. But to go and grab that equaliser this early on in the second half is crucial psychologically. So they'll be desperate to go and find themselves a winner and take all 3 points off top 4 rivals.
Yeah, and I mean, table-wise, a defeat would be costly, obviously, because it then allows both Leipzig and Leverkusen to jump over them or give them the opportunity to. So definitely a big goal there in that game. Meanwhile, in the Wolfsburg Dortmund game, Dortmund, I mean, Hakimi has now got the ball and he's looking to try and spearhead attack. And Julian Brandt, for me, has been probably one of the best players on the pitch today. When he's given the opportunity and given the space, the way he just drifts and finds space, and suddenly he's able to find that killer pass that unlocks the defense. Really,
he just wants the ball all the time, and I love footballers like that who just, you can tell that they want to make things happen, and that is just so evident with Julian Brandt. He is everywhere on the pitch today. He's even just sort of like getting himself into little positions where he can play a quick 1-2. Even, it doesn't necessarily have to lead to anything, but it's just keeping defenders guessing. Where could he be? What is he going to do next? And I think players like that for Dortmund are absolutely invaluable with the system they play. He's so fluid on the ball. He's just played a really nifty little touch pass to Mamid Dahoud, who's just broken forward from midfield. But yeah, Brandt's the key. I think this is why, to an extent, actually, there's been no pressure for Favre to bring in Jadon Sancho, because Brandt's been playing absolutely superbly regardless, and there's no pressure or need for him to come back. So yeah, you see Brandt again just dropping deep and just causing problems, dragging players out of position and out of that very fixed Wolfsburg system, which is absolutely crucial to have when you're up against a tight-knit defence like Wolfsburg have.
Yeah, and especially with we mentioned the Wolfsburg pair of Schlanger and Arnold. I mean, those guys tend to be sort of slotted in their positions. They're not particularly gonna push on and play that kind of box-to-box role. So the fact that he's drifting there and he's just kind of giving them something to think about for sure is going to be effective for Dortmund if they're going to get another goal and really just create problems for that Wolfsburg back four. For sure, as a free kick, I think as a foul Schlanger, as a free kick to Casteels. It's interesting because we thought, bringing back Weghorst, who's been the talisman for Wolfsburg, maybe this is where his impact comes in with the change for Hummels and Chan. Maybe this is where he has an impact.
Yeah, I mean, Weghorst, I think he's 6'5". He's a big bloke. Hummels 6'4". I want to say Hummels is quite a tall player. I think Chan's at least like 2 or 3 inches shorter than Hummels. And that height discrepancy against Weghorst is going to be desperate to try and exploit that as much as he can. That Dortmund backline is not the tallest. So maybe an outlet for Wolfsburg would be, particularly if they bring on I've completely forgotten the left winger name, Brecalo's. If they bring on Brecalo, maybe they could try and whip in a couple of crosses and build around that way. They've got a free kick here. So interesting to see if they do anything with this. So Delaney's just gotten a little bit tetchy, shall we say.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not a great challenge. He's late onto Arnold, whacks him in the back of the leg,
No, and you look at Dortmund's midfield options. Obviously, they're limited thanks to injury, and with the game against Bayern coming up, obviously, you don't really want to see anyone. I'm not suggesting he's going to get sent off, but but he does carry that risk now, and you definitely don't want him or Dahoud or even an Emre Can to kind of pick up something like that and cost themselves.
Particularly not if you end up having to move Julian Brandt out of this position that he's excelling in, because you have to play him in a deeper role. Taking that away from this, it's like a bit of a double whammy. I mean, the only thing is that they're hoping to have Axel Witsel back soon. He, for me, is Dortmund's best midfielder. I really like him. I think he's a really slick player on the ball. I think he's got a goal in him as well. He's very keen on breaking forward. They'll be desperate to get him back in the team because he is their real top class midfielder. That being said, Delaney and Dahoud. Absolutely no problems with either of them. I think they're both fairly solid footballers, and they'll. The system they've been playing today, where they've been kind of keeping their position, keeping their discipline to an extent, that's been absolutely crucial to Dortmund being 1-0 up. So they won't want to have that disrupted at all.
Yeah, and they'll be those two being the industrious and more defensive minded, that might work in their favor against the likes of Thiago Goretzka. As the free kick comes in and hits the wall, a bit of a wasted opportunity, and now Dortmund can kind of
You expect more from Max Arnold in those positions as well.
Yeah,
natural free kick taker. Got a wonderful left peg on him. You would have expected him to do a bit better, but they've still got some pressure.
Yeah, for sure. And Brandt and they switch it now, and they find the left back and Roussillon, and now it comes to I think it's Zapschlanger, but it's cleared, and now Dortmund are on the break here. Haaland with the ball, and he finds, I think that's Torgan Hazard, and he's pushing up the field. He's got options on the right. He finds it. I think it's a Hakimi. He sends the cross. Oh, he's overhit the cross. Oh, that's a shame, really.
It was an interesting decision to cross, because Dortmund didn't have many players in the box at that point. I just wonder if Dahoud or Delaney were coming in. And I think Hakimi could have just delayed that cross by a couple of seconds, allow the players to get a little bit more set, and maybe even allow someone to run for the back post, because the cross itself wasn't great, but it was into a pretty decent area. So if they had more bodies in the box, they might have had a bit more joy with that cross. But just a wrong decision, maybe symptomatic of Hakimi's youth, that he was too keen on getting that cross in.
Yeah, and just to give our listeners, our viewers, an update, there's been a goal at Gladbach Leverkusen. Leverkusen are back in front with Kai Havertz converting a penalty, so he's got his second. Obviously, we have no idea how contentious the penalty decision may have been made. Maybe it was a clear forward penalty, but regardless, again, it gives Marco Rose and his players a job on their hands, really, in the last half an hour or so to really again get themselves an equalizer, and then push for and try and salvage something, because now they are down at home. They are 2-1 down at home at Leverkusen.
And you also have to remember, Josh, that with this Mönchengladbach side, they're in a really strange position where they kind of need Champions League football if they're going to have any hope of holding on to some of these players. Mm-hmm. Like Alisson Player, but I think he's been linked with Arsenal a couple of times as a potential replacement for Alexandre Lacazette. Marcus Thuram, I'm sure there'll be plenty of clubs in Europe who'll be keen on taking him on, because he looks like an incredible talent. Brelin Bolo, a little bit older, maybe, could go either way, but the point is that this Gladbach side, they kind of need to, if they're going to look to progress as a club and re-establish themselves as a top club in German football, like they have been historically, they need to make sure that they secure this top 4 position, because it's not looking particularly great for them if they're dropping points against top 4 rivals in Bayer Leverkusen. They'll need an equaliser as soon as possible, because let's face it, a draw is probably enough from this game for them.
Yeah, and conversely, if Leverkusen can somehow muscle their way into a Champions League spot, then I'm not saying Kai Havertz, I'm not saying that's the thing that keeps him at the club, but certainly it boosts their chances, certainly of keeping him for at least a season or two before he takes that plunge and moves elsewhere. As we see a yellow card for, I believe it's Ginczek's got a yellow card there. I think he just tried to, it was kind of one of those tactical fouls, tried to stop Torgan Hazard, and he did the job, and now it gives his team a bit of a chance to set up positionally, as Dortmund kind of take possession of the ball. And
back on Havertz, I don't see him staying at Leverkusen unless no one can A, afford to buy him, or B, Leverkusen can't afford to sell him because they can't afford to replace him, because we don't really know what the transfer market's going to be like when all this is said and done. I mean, I'm quite Havertz is obviously a top player. I think he should move on. Yes, he's still a young player. Yes, a move to Bayern Munich would be risky, but I think it would be the right kind of risk. He'd be one of the best players in the team. So this is Wolfsburg, very nearly got in there. Max Arnold at the back post. If that ball falls a little bit nicer for him, he's got an open goal to just sort of poke it home. Wolfsburg slowly starting to look a little bit more dangerous. But no, I think with Havertz, I think he's a good player, and I think it would probably be the right move for him to try and take an extra step up at the end of the season, because he's kind of proven himself already at Leverkusen. He should probably look to consolidate himself elsewhere.
Yeah, for sure. I am just curious to see what Leverkusen, how much they value for him for, and obviously given the current situation of the transfer window, that whatever fee that they'd hope to get for him is they're probably not going to get from him in this window. So it's a case for me of whether they're seeing how strong is his desire to go, and it's a great save. It's a great save for Roman Bürki to keep out. He keeps out Renato Stefan's left foot volley. He caught it sweetly there, and it was dipping, but Bürki, he kind of parries it away.
All over the place as well, and he does really well to correct his positioning a little bit, because it does look like it's going to bend into the top corner. It takes this horrible swerve at the last minute. Very good save from Roman Bürki, who's, let's face it, he's one of the top goalkeepers in the Bundesliga right now. He's had a fantastic season. Very impressive save.
And it just goes to show that Wolfsburg are slowly kind of creeping in and starting to have an impact offensively. And and I was going to say with the earlier chance, that cross that unfortunately no one finished for Wolfsburg, but that came along that right side. And we heard you talk about how you're not a huge fan of Hakimi defensively. Well, there was proof of that. I mean, it came down his right flank, and that volley again was in that kind of vicinity where you'd expect Hakimi to be. So, for sure, it's something for definitely that Lucien Favre is going to have to keep an eye on.
You're seeing now that Brandt's starting to move over to that right hand side just to give Hakimi that little bit of extra cover. This is part of the problem, is that you're going to see, as the game progresses, you're going to see Brandt's contribution probably decline. I'm saying that now he's going to go and score a hat-trick or something, but you probably see him in an attacking sense. His contribution will start to decline as he has to put a bit more the emphasis on his defensive play. Bit of a tongue twister. Hakimi, I don't rate him as a defensive footballer. I don't think he's particularly great. Equally, I don't know who Dortmund could bring on in his place, so we'll wait and see.
Yeah, and two changes have just been made for Wolfsburg. The man we've been calling out for, Josip Brekalo, he's now on for last week's match winner, Daniel Ginczek. He comes off, and on comes, and also Russi on the left back, he comes off, and on comes Felix Klaus. So Wolfsburg make two of their 5 changes with about 26 minutes to go. And we're just watching that. Renato Stefani catches that very sweetly, and it's a difficult one for Bürki to get rid of, but he does a very good job there. But those 2 changes, Luke, and we see now Jadon Sancho is coming on, and I believe that is for Julian Brandt, unless I am mistaken. But it is Julian Brandt coming off. So changes being made by both sides. Let's start with the Wolfsburg one. Brekalo will certainly add some added impetus and intensity into their attack.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's what we're looking for. Just a little bit of ingenuity on that left-hand side, because they know that is Dortmund's weak spot. And I think Hakimi, as the game progresses, is going to get that little bit more tired. Mostly with Hakimi is going to be the mental fatigue. If they can sort of catch him on a lapse of concentration and just get in behind him, play across goal, particularly we know how clinical Weghorst is. I think he scored all of his goals from inside the penalty area for Wolfsburg, which is mental considering he's been playing for the past 2 seasons. Or at least he scored the vast majority of his goals inside the penalty area. That's going to really be their proper outlet. And it's also a matter of, Thorgan Hazard, he's probably going to have to be a bit more... what's the word I'm looking for? Conservative in his attacking play. We might even see Jadon Sancho have to take on a bit more of a defensive role. I'm really interested to see how this battle on Dortmund's right-hand side is going to play out for the rest of this game. And if they can, if they manage to cope with the onslaught that Wolfsburg are clearly about to launch.
Yeah, and now turning our attention now to Jadon Sancho coming on for Brandt. I mean, we talked about it. Brandt was arguably one of the players of the match today. He was very impressive, and we now just watch Wolfsburg as they come down the left, and again, no one's able to get onto that. And now Raf Guerrero he can just
made a massive mistake there, Wolfsburg. All of their they had 3 players in the box, and all of them stepped forward into the exact same position. Interesting, I think it was Weghorst who was the one who was furthest away from the ball, so he was one who was most towards the back post. You should have seen, he should have been able to just go, you know what, I'm just going to hang off and I'm going to wait for this ball to be pulled back, because there was so much space for for him to go and potentially get a shot off on Berkey there. Just tiny mistakes creeping into Wolfsburg play. They're not capitalising on it, but Dortmund looking especially fragile on that right-hand side. We saw that again. Hakimi gets caught out on the right-hand side. How often have we said that this game? If that keeps on happening, they're going to be in a lot of trouble.
And he's got a not quite match fit Jadon Sancho in front of him, and I'm thinking this is a good time. I mean, Sancho for Brandt, as we said, Brandt he looked very good. He was probably one of the best players on the pitch. But maybe it's cramp, maybe it's I don't quite know what it was that maybe it's a tactical decision to bring him off. But Sancho on the right now. What do you expect a lot from him, considering that this is kind of his first game back in 7-8 weeks, or is this kind of just going to be or maybe will he be the one that kind of hopefully seals the game off from Dortmund's point of view?
I think what Favre's doing here is 2 things. Thing number 1 is giving a rest to Julian Brandt, who has been here, there, and everywhere in this game. He did look like he was getting a little bit leggy towards the end. I think they need him against Bayern Munich, because he's been magnificent in this game today, and indeed last week against Schalke. And the second thing that it does is it gives Jadon Sancho a run out ahead of a game, probably the biggest game in Dortmund's season, and one of their biggest, dare I say, one of their biggest games for 5 years, in terms of, they've never really been close to Bayern at this stage of the season. Now they are, with only a few games to go, and if they win, they put real pressure on what has been an incredibly dominant Bayern Munich side. So that's got to be their focus. They have to start looking ahead towards the game next week. There's no real difference in terms of the defensive contribution between Brandt and Sancho. Even you could even argue Sancho's going to be more ready to provide a defensive contribution on the right hand side, which is where the overloads seem to be happening on the Wolfsburg side. So there's definitely a bit of prioritization going on there, and just making sure that they keep next game in mind, and just going from there. Looks like Wolfsburg have a free kick in a very dangerous position though.
Yeah, Kevin Mbabu there with a nice burst down the right, and quite a cynical shove from Guerrero to get rid of him, but there we go. And then just some replays of some shirt tucks. Weghorst there. I saw that, and I did think that might be given, but the referee clearly thought there was nothing in there. But regardless, there's a free kick in Wolfsburg's final third, just a bit more to the right than they'd have liked. But and I do believe they have Bracalo standing over it, and so is Max Arnold, and it's Bracalo to take, and he curls it, and it just, the delivery's not been, either it's been the delivery or they've not been able to get someone on the end of their crosses, Luke.
It's been just a complete lack of final product on the side of Wolfsburg in this half. They've had their opportunities to get this game level. I say this as Haaland is bursting through. Sancho's picking up the ball. He's got Guerrero to his left. Guerrero picks up the ball and smashes it towards a goal, and it goes out for a goal kick. And over a safe goal for a kick, it's actually taken a deflection out for a corner. It's just a complete lack of final touch really for Wolfsburg. They have had opportunities to go ahead in this game. We saw Stefan hit the bar earlier in the second half, which we thought would rattle Dortmund, and it has to an extent, but not really. And they keep managing to get in behind them on the right hand side, but they haven't actually had it culminate in anything yet. So hopefully, Dortmund would be hoping that they can kind of capitalise on Wolfsburg's wastefulness and kill the game off. Ball comes in.
Yeah, and there's no better time to play like a side like Dortmund than like in their first few games after they've come back after 7 or 8 weeks. So certainly it's an opportunity for them to kind of try and get a result in before Dortmund kind of hit full stride. Although Schalke were certainly hoping that, and then look what happened to them. They got pretty much pulverized last weekend, and that corner didn't come up to much for Dortmund, and they'll try and reset here. 20 minutes to go, still 1-0. Still 1-0 between Dortmund, and I'll just quickly run through the other scores as people can see on the bottom of our screen. Gladbach 2-1 down at home to Leverkusen. Rather, Kai Havertz picking up another 2 goals. Marcus Thuram scoring for Gladbach. You've got Paderborn holding Hoffenheim to a 1-1 draw at the moment. Bottom side Paderborn through Dennis Streni's equaliser after Skov gave for Hoffenheim the lead, and Freiburg 1-0 down at home to Werder Bremen. A surprise result for sure so far. Leandro Bittencourt being the only goal scorer there. So let's go back to Wolfsburg Dortmund, and
Dortmund have a corner.
Dortmund, and suddenly it seems like they've picked up. Wolfsburg had that spell early on in the second half, but it seems like they've picked up again.
Yeah,
Dortmund
definitely.
Up,
the pressure just seems to have eased off a little bit. They kind of weathered the storm that was being put on that Dortmund right hand side. I actually think Sancho's presence on the right has actually it had the twofold effect of not only giving Dortmund a bit of some fresh legs going defensively, but kind of made Wolfsburg think, wait, hang on, we can't really stretch ourselves too much on this left hand side, because if we do and we lose the ball, then Jadon Sancho's gonna just run behind us. And it looks like there might be even a shout for a penalty here, which could be given. It's John Brooks off the cross from Hakimi, and it looks like it's just nothing has come of it. Brooks is just laughing it off. It look like his hand was in a slightly unnatural position. I wouldn't personally give it as a penalty. I don't think it needs to be given as a penalty. And now it looks like it's going to be taken as a corner. Guerrero whips the ball in. It's poorly punched away by Castells. But Wolfsburg do manage to get it clear.
Brooks, who's already been booked early on for that foul on Sancho, so for sure, if that led to a penalty and him maybe getting sent off, then that definitely would have changed the game from a Wolfsburg perspective.
And Barbaros caused all kind of trouble on that right hand side for Wolfsburg as well. They've had wide areas for Wolfsburg today have been very threatening. Thorgan Hazard's going to go into the book absolutely deservedly. He knew what he was doing, taking out Mbabu then.
It's cynical.
I had acres of space to run into and try and whip something into the box. So, yeah, I've been massively impressed with both the wing player both sides in this game. It's weird punching technique from Castells. It looks like Weghorst ducks, and I don't know if he gets a shout from Castells in the goal, but Castells just doesn't. He either seems really surprised by it, or he just makes a mistake and doesn't get his hand to it as he should have done. But Wolfsburg have a free kick.
Yeah, and it looks like Max Arnold again is looking to do something. Maybe Brocalo.
It's a decent shot from Brooks. It goes well wide of the post. It looks like actually might have taken the deflection off. I've completely forgotten his name. The other central midfielder who isn't Arnold.
Schlanger.
Schlanger.
Yeah, not a bad effort, but very much a centre back's kind of effort.
Yeah, just kind of have a poke, see what happens.
Yeah, and I mean, time is definitely running out, and you look at Wolfsburg's remaining options on the bench, and no one entirely screams out. So this is kind of them going for it. In terms of who they've got left on, whereas Dortmund have the luxury of putting on a Gio Reyna or Mario Götze if they want to kind of wrap this game up.
Yeah, I think the emphasis for Dortmund right now would just be to kind of do as little disruption to their system as they possibly can, because they seem to have largely contained Wolfsburg now. See, with the pressure Sancho's doing, like you're seeing Sancho now, where we saw Brandt kind of drifting here, there, and everywhere, and allowing Roussillon to push forward from left back. Actually, they've swapped out their left back, haven't they? To I've forgotten his name.
Klaus.
Yeah. The point being that Brandt was kind of here, there, and everywhere. What we're seeing with Sancho is, we just saw him in one position. He's dropped off a little bit now, but he's sitting right on the offside line and just kind of pinning the fullbacks back so that Hakimi has less to deal with on the right hand side. I think it's a very smart tactic from Favre.
Yeah, and Favre, who at the start of the season, certainly his job looked a little threatened for sure. You know, he was criticized for being too gung ho, maybe not looking after his defense. But so far they've looked all right today. They've looked as solid as they can be. As the clock kind of ticks down, and they had to, you know, withstand that pressure from Wolfsburg early on, but they've asserted control again. And yeah, here, and I mean, yeah, as you said, the job probably now for Dortmund is to avoid injuries and try and just see this game out and do as and really
They've
just
done
get
it.
themselves ready. It's a goal.
It's Achraf Hakimi's got the goal.
There
and
we
again,
go.
It's Sancho playing this has killed the game off. It's absolutely perfect bit of counter-attacking play from Dortmund, and really speaks actually to the maturity of Jadon Sancho in this situation. He was so calm. Yeah, really good bit of attacking play. So the who plays the ball in a good area, and Sancho just really quick feet to get past Stefan on the left hand side. Arnold tries to catch up with him, and essentially just sort of slows down. And he passes the ball to the right, to his right, and there's Hakimi who's absolutely barnstormed, using his pace to get forward, and he slides it well beyond Castells through his legs. Absolutely no chance into the bottom corner. Yeah, very good counter-attacking play from Dortmund, and yeah, Jadon Sancho making the difference yet again with yet another assist. Yeah, what an absolutely magnificent talent he is.
Yeah, and both wing backs scoring today, which says a lot about the modern 21st century football, where you have two wing backs kind of doing the damage for you on the scoreboard. And I mean, this is obviously a bit of more of a novelty, interesting point, but the whole idea of the Bundesliga setting out clear hygiene regulations in terms of goal celebrations is clearly not it's clearly not been applied by the Dortmund players, or I don't know, because they seem to be pretty comfortable hugging each other and stuff like that. So that's an interesting thing. And Gio Reyna's now come on for Thorgan Hazard, so he's going to get 10 or 12 minutes or so to kind of have a cameo and hopefully get himself onto the in terms of damaging the scoreboard in some way, whether being a goal or assist, we will wait to see. But again, yeah, Thorgan Hazard's had a good game, and he's done the job, and he you know has been I mean he's been asked to do a bit more creatively in the absence of the likes of Sancho and Reina, and he's done it today, I think.
Yeah, and also, like, you know, no Marco Reus as well. He's had a bit of a tall order, Thorgan Hazard. I think one thing that he's done in this game is he has been more of the utility man in the front three. We've seen Brandt wander wherever he wants. We've seen Haaland kind of leading the line. Hazard's been the one who's kind of had to be a bit more disciplined and come out to help Guerrero on the left hand side. I think he's done a good job. He had to take a yellow card, but no shame in that whatsoever. He's had a very good game, and he'll definitely be in with a shout of starting on Wednesday, on Tuesday rather. So what's going on here? The referee's about to go and check his VAR for, I think it's a potential red card.
Oh right, hang on. Yeah, I mean, as you said, players looking quite confused. And yeah, this is very interesting. This is very interesting. I don't think it's been made clear, certainly to us, I don't think it's made clear as to who. It looks like an infringement against Wolfsburg. But who? I mean, I'm looking at the players who are booked, who have been booked. Ginczek's obviously come off the pitch, so John Brooks is the only player that's been booked for Wolfsburg, unless it's a straight red card. It looks like it's against.
It's for Klaus. Yeah, it looks like it's for Felix Klaus.
Yeah, it looks like he may have trod on is it Akanji? Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. I must admit I didn't make too much. I didn't think too much of it, Luke. I'm guessing you didn't make too much of it. I think too much of it either.
No,
Yeah, this is certainly an interesting one. And obviously, Akanji looks to get the ball, and he does. But and here comes the referee, and I don't think this will be interesting to see what happens. I don't think anything's going to come of it. I don't know, Luke. What did you think of the challenge? Do you think it was particularly malicious?
I don't know, Josh, because my stream is not loading, so I have no idea. Unfortunately.
Right, I will.
But,
he's walking.
I have to say, I didn't notice it originally.
He's been sent off. He has been sent off. So Felix Klaus has been given his marching orders. He is walking off. The Wolfsburg players are protesting to the referee to no avail. Meanwhile, chaos suddenly coming to this game. Dortmund make a substitution, bringing on Balerdi, and he comes on for I believe it's Thomas Delaney who's come off, or is it Raf? Yep, Thomas Delaney has come off. Also, I think Marcel Schmelzer has come on for Raf Guerrero. So that is the last of Dortmund's 5 substitutions. But a very a dismissal. I don't think, and certainly if there were fans at the game, I imagine they would have been just as mystified as we are at home. But yeah, a challenge. It looks like he trod on Akanji's his leg, and that was enough for the VAR for the team, the VAR team, to tell the referee that it was a sending off offence. So there we go. Wolfsburg down to 10 men. Luke, I don't know if you've got your stream back, but any reaction?
I still haven't seen it. I have not seen the incident. I'm gonna try and go on Reddit and see if it has anything.
But okay, so what do you reckon that does to the rest of the game? I mean, obviously, I think we now think this is pretty much a Dortmund win sewn up. But did you? I have no idea. Did you think Wolfsburg had a chance of maybe getting a goal back, or do you reckon this now is just killed them off?
I don't see Wolfsburg getting back into this game. I think Dortmund would just be happy to kind of just chill and see out the game as best they can. It's not been the best day at the office really for Wolfsburg. They did have their opportunities in the second half. They didn't save them. Dortmund capitalised, and that's kind of where the game's going to end. Dortmund, I think, will be looking to get their their 6th clean sheets in 5 games. Only 1 goal conceded in their last 5 games, which is prior to this one, which is pretty impressive. So I think, they'll be very much looking forward to that, and just grabbing that win and then going and looking ahead to their game against Bayern Munich on Tuesday.
Yep, and a substitution has been made by the home side. João Victor has come off the bench. He comes on for Mehmedi. As the kind of final 5 minutes or so of this game kind of play out. And let's just quickly run through the scores of all the other games. So Dortmund lead 2-0 at Wolfsburg, as we have been commentating on. Leverkusen still holding on to that 2-1 lead over Gladbach. Actually, quick amendment to that, it is 3-1 Leverkusen. So this is a big result in the top 5. Sven Bender has got his name on the score sheet, and yes, that means that Leverkusen look like they are going to romp to a 3-1 win at Borussia Mönchengladbach, which means they will overtake both Gladbach and Leipzig into 3rd place at the moment of the Bundesliga. So that is a big result there. And Werder Bremen still lead Freiburg 1-0 thanks to Leandro Bittencourt's goal, and Paderborn Hoffenheim remains 1-1 at the moment. But yeah, I mean, we can talk about the we'll talk about the Leverkusen Gladbach result later on as this game kind of peters out. But yeah, as we said, Dortmund lead Wolfsburg 2-0. Red card for Felix Klaus. So
I'm
it
looking
means
at it now, Josh. I think that's really unfair.
okay.
I really don't. I can see why the referee's given it, but at the same time I completely can't. I don't think that is. I can see why he's given it in terms of where he's ended up, because he does stamp on Akanji's leg and it is like somewhat dangerous. But he's just challenging for the ball. He's not going for. He's not even anything remotely malicious or even reckless about it. I think it's just unfortunate. Akanji puts his foot in the way towards the goal, towards the ball, as he goes to try and as he tries to control it, and it's just I don't think it's a red card. I think it's massively unfair. Actually, I completely disagree with the decision.
I didn't see much in it, to be honest. I didn't think much of it, as certainly, but clearly the officials, the VAR officials, deemed it noteworthy, and we just saw Bricala put in a nice cross in.
I think they were right to send the referee to go and have a look at it. I just don't think it was a red card.
Okay.
It's definitely the kind of one where you do want the referee just to have that little bit of officiality on it, because it was. I mean, he does kind of stand on his leg like that. That is indisputable, and for that reason, you kind of do have to see if the referee thinks there's anything in it. But I don't see why the referee's given it. I think that's incredibly unfair on Wolfsburg and on Felix Klaus. I don't think that's particularly fair on him.
Yeah, it's for sure, and it's going to be it's a decision an interesting decision that was made, and I don't think it will have too much bearing on how the game was going to play out. But yeah, that's an interesting one. I've just been updating the table, the top 5 at least, on the bottom of your screens there. So Dortmund will move to a point of Bayern Munich, who play in the late kickoff against Eintracht Frankfurt, and Leverkusen have jumped both Gladbach and Leipzig into 3rd position if the result stays as it is. And I'm just watching Wolfsburg there. They are fair play to them. They're still going for it on that flank, on that left flank. Bricalo again is putting in a bit of a lively cameo, trying to get his team going for it, but unfortunately it's not quite worked out. And indeed, Dortmund might be able to counter here. It's Marcel Schmelzer has got the ball, but no, I think Wolfsburg flood bodies back and are able to take away that counter-attacking threat. But looking ahead, Luke, so I guess we can start. I guess with this result looking pretty much certain, we can start looking at Bayern Frankfurt. We kind of mentioned it earlier on at the beginning, but this is a game, as you said, both sides have, I wouldn't say history. There's no beef certainly, but Frankfurt have a good track record against Bayern at times, and obviously this is a away game for them, so it's going to be a mighty task to go to the Allianz Arena and get a big result there. But they've certainly proved that they've caused problems, and they can cause problems to the likes of Dairoten's players.
Yeah, definitely. I think you kind of touched on something there, Josh, about the location of the match, because I think what people forget is that even though there's no crowd there, the home away difference does matter. In terms of pitch, mostly in terms of the pitch size. I think the Allianz has a relatively large pitch as far as I can remember. So what that allows for is for Bayern to play quite expansively and create a bit more space than they would do on a more compact pitch. So I think that's going to be the main job of Frankfurt, is to just try and make that pitch as small as possible. Try not to concede early. I mean, that sounds quite obvious, but I think they'll want to try and stay in the game as long as they can and try and nick something at the end, because Bayern Munich, we know, are so dangerous going forward, and we know that if they go ahead early on, I mean, we saw against Union where they scored just before half time, and at that point it was kind of game over. If they score even earlier than that, then there's going to be more trouble. On Bayern's front, I think they'll be perfectly happy not to rush into the game. They'll be fine with just kind of sitting back, soaking up some pressure, just sort of easing their way into the game. Maybe even kind of tease Eintracht out of their defensive formation a little bit, and then just go and hit them with one goal. They've been in this position before in terms of if they're up against the walls a little bit in this game, they kind of have the experience, the title management to be able to get themselves through those tough periods. That's something that Borussia Dortmund don't necessarily have. So it's going to be reliant on those kind of microcosmic aspects of the game. But no, I'm mostly looking forward to seeing how Bayern actually manage this game. If they end up dropping some points, then all it's going to do is just going to drop even more impetus on Dortmund to go and do something and go and take the win against them next week. Because if they get the win in this game, Dortmund are going to be, we know we're going to be within 4 points of them. If Bayern get the win, what that will do going into the game on Tuesday is if Bayern Munich still manage to beat Dortmund, I think that will be the title killed off. I think that'll be it for Dortmund and their title bid. Bayern, this Tuesday is going to really determine how this title race is going to look in the final weeks of the season.
Yeah, and I'm just going to run. The class is a big Classico game for sure, and I'm just going to run through some of the team news that we have. Obviously, Philippe Coutinho and Corentin Tolisso both have ankle injuries, so they won't be playing. Javi Martinez, Nicolas Hula short of match fitness, so it's unlikely we're going to see them. Same with Thiago Alcantara, picked up a groin knock in the game against Union Berlin, and we are, again, unlikely to see him feature as such. And in terms of, I guess for people who may not know, Frankfurt, obviously the big threat is Bas Dost up front and Filip Kostic on the wing. Both players are key to their attacking threat. Kamada as well, a really tidy player, a Japanese international. And then, they have also got Sebastian Rode in midfield as we watch Wolfsburg they have a corner. It's headed away, and the last minute or so, maybe we can start getting your thoughts, Luke, on the game as a whole. It was a pretty... Dortmund seemed pretty much in control, bar a 10-20 minute spell. And it was kind of they got the 3 points, and they got the job done.
Yeah, this is exactly what Lucien Favre would have wanted. I think the crucial thing for Dortmund was getting the goal in the first half. I think if they don't get the goal in the first half with the onslaught that they invited in the second half, they're in trouble. Favre will also be happy with substitutions. I think the Jadon Sancho substitution, bringing him on, came at the perfect time. Came at the time when Dortmund were under a bit of bombardment from Wolfsburg on that right-hand side of theirs. And, both the wing-backs getting on the score sheet as well is something we've seen so many times this season. Hakimi and Guerrero are just so good at football. Two of the best attacking wing-backs in world football right now. It was just a kind of like an ideal victory. Get the clean sheet as well, be massive encouragement. I think the only drawbacks would be having to sub off Mats Hummels if he's not available for whatever reason against Bayern Munich. He's going to be an absolutely massive miss because Emre Can isn't as good as him as a centre back. But overall, Dortmund are going to be very happy with that result. I think it was 100% deserved. Maybe a little bit lucky that Wolfsburg didn't get themselves back into the game early on in the second half. But you know what? When you're going for a title, you have to ride your luck sometimes. And they did that today, and they finished clinically and got themselves the win, which is all that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can run through the final scores as the games come to an end. Gladbach, a 3-1 defeat at home to Leverkusen, and that is a big defeat in terms of their hopes for European football, and mathematically they still had a chance of going for the title, but now they've lost, and they've lost at their top 5 rivals. So a bit of a not a great result there for them, and could be costly for sure. Bottom side Paderborn managed to get a point at home to Hoffenheim. Hoffenheim, who are in mid-table and had some brief hopes of maybe getting into a Europa League spot or not, that seems to be gone. And Werder Bremen, they beat Freiburg away again. Freiburg, who had hopes of pushing up that top half. Werder Bremen, who they are quite buried at the bottom, but maybe they'll have if Cologne can beat Fortuna Düsseldorf on Monday, it gives them a chance of at least getting into that relegation playoff in 16th place. So those are the results for the Saturday afternoon game. You've got Bayern against Frankfurt later this evening, as we've discussed, and then tomorrow you've got Schalke at home to Augsburg, and Mainz at home to Leipzig, and then Monday Cologne at home to Fortuna Düsseldorf. So I think that will do us there. My thanks to Luke Edwards for co-commentating on this game with me, and
pleasure.
Thank you very much, Luke, for coming on, and we will be back next Saturday again with more, maybe not in this format commentary if we have more people, but again, at Raw Sport we're looking to try and change it up and be a bit flexible and bring together different broadcasts. So thank you for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.